So today's session, we're going to break it down into two areas. First, we're going to talk about market research resources, and then we'll take a short break, and then we'll come back and do the marketing requirements for government agencies. And that's also known as capabilities statements or line cards. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to try to finish up about 2:45. And at that time, if you are interested in participating in our networking events for next week, you might want to stay on board because we're going to do a walkthrough on the SPOT application, which is a matchmaking event scenario. It takes just a little bit of acclimation. We did that last Thursday in one of our other classes, well, actually on Tuesday, and it turned out really well. So also in the email that we sent you, there were a couple opportunities on there that were sent to us from our friends at City of Seattle, City of Tacoma. And anyway, so, if you're interested in following up on those, go ahead and click on those emails directly to those individuals. And this class, like all other classes, we have all the session materials listed in our Dropbox, and that was sent to you in the email. And in there, you'll find the updated presentation that we're doing today, and also a folder with additional resources in it. And I can see from our participants today that we have Lisa Lagerstrom from the Snohomish County PTAC. And so I'm going to ask Lisa to maybe participate in some of the discussion. PTAC share the burden at every event that we go to. So welcome aboard, Lisa. And if anybody has any questions, we'll try to answer them along the way. So I guess we're ready to go, and and we'll just get the show going here for you. All right. So, marketing tactics and strategies. Everything you ever wanted to know and were afraid to ask. So generally, we have Tiffany Scroggs, who's our program manager for Washington PTAC, and Colleen McAleer from Clallam County, and they weren't able to be with us today, but Jessica Chang from USDOT, the SBTRC, she and I have been doing some heavy lifting on getting these presentations made available to you. And so in addition to Lisa, we also have Andrew Miller here, and he's kind of like our go-to technical support guy. So just bear with us if we have any technical issues. Just a quick overview on Washington PTAC. PTACs are funded throughout the United States under a program through the Department of Defense, and Congress approves PTAC funding in their annual budgets. And there are 93 PTACs in the US with 400 counselors, and Washington State has 12 counselors in it. So if you're not on the Olympic Peninsula, we have PTACs up and down I-5. We have them over in Eastern Washington, both Spokane and Tri-Cities, and Vancouver and Auburn and Seattle. And Lisa is in Everett out of the Snohomish County. And we have some really excellent retired contracting officers that provide a really good balance to our organization. So what does PTAC do? Well, we help you find opportunities, interpret solicitations. We walk you through the certifications and registrations, which we did last week. There's always classes on marketing to government buyers, and that's our topic today. And PTAC does this through workshops, one-on-one counseling, matchmaking events, and also through a little program called Bid Match, which if you're interested, we can talk about that later. So today's classes, we have three objectives. They're called the 3 Ps: planning, which is market research; positioning, how to get noticed; and then pursuing. So what you're going to see is it's all about who you know and trying to figure out who your target entity is going to be. So let's get started. So market research. Market research, business, and financial planning is critical to the success of a small business. In addition to networking, communications and relationships, knowing how to leverage your past performance and do continuous marketing. And, it's a brave new world in marketing compared to the way it was 10 years ago. So some agencies, are out there, looking at social media, others not so much. It depends on, which one is capable of looking at social media. But the real key is being prepared, and you have to be patient and very persistent when you want to move forward. And of course, small businesses create jobs, and large businesses are really such an important part of government contracting. Not everybody wants to grow up to be a prime contractor. So small businesses, this is actually a good way to connect with the primes. And our events next week, both Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to have some primes on hand that can sit down and talk to you and see what opportunities you will have with them. And I see that we just posted our little poll, and we'll take a quick breather right here. And if you would answer these questions, what target agencies do you have in mind in doing government contracting? The other couple questions are, have you ever done market research? And do you know where to look for the resources? So hopefully today we'll be able to clear some of these up. And when we're done with the polling, we'll go ahead and get the results put up there for you. All right. And as we're moving forward, remember that you can close out the poll results by clicking on the X. And, the same thing with the chat or whatever might be in your way. But seeing this real quick, looks like federal is the winner. Federal and state and county are the big ones for the targets. And a fair number of you have done market research, and most people don't really know, who to check with. So the number one resource for everybody on the line today should be your local PTAC. And if you don't know who your local PTAC is, you can email me, and we'll connect you with the right party. You'll have to bear with us. Some of us have had a little bit of a lag problem. So as I'm trying to click through to this, and oh, sure. And then it just keeps going and going. Come on. All right, so let's start the market research section. And again, this slideshow is available in your Dropbox folder. Okay. All right, so this particular chart here gives you a really good idea of how growth and profitability come into play if you do no research, if you only do it occasionally, or if you frequent the research. We have a really good PTAC partner in target.gov, and Gloria Larkin is the source of some of this information. So before we get started, we need to talk about the hot buttons in regards to marketing. Down the road, everything about government contracting comes down to two words: responsive and responsible. Responsive means you actually know how to fill all the paperwork out, and you've actually signed your bid when you have submitted it. Years ago, the Walla Walla Army Corps of Engineers told me that the biggest reason that someone is not considered is because they didn't sign the paperwork. So responsive means you know how to fill out all the paperwork and sign it. And responsible means you actually have the capacity to do the work. If you are doing building bridges, you have the infrastructure in your organization for the heavy equipment and the manpower. And, so again, if you're just a little contractor and all you have is a pickup truck and your pet dog and a shovel, you're not going to get the great big contract. So, they look for you being responsible. And the contracting officers, when they're looking at your submission, they are also looking to see if you have any past performance. And do you have proven capacity? Have you ever teamed with anybody on a project before? And do you have the simplified acquisition procedures, which are methods designed to streamline the process, just facilitate procurement of goods and services? Really, really small companies, may never ever have this information, but the prime contractors will definitely need that. And do they qualify as a set aside? And we've kind of talked about this along the way for, disadvantaged business enterprises, woman-owned, veteran-owned, hub zones, and these are all critical aspects to a contracting officer looking at your ability to perform a contract. So we have some resources here, and you're going to find some of this information in our resource folder. And then I also have embedded some links in here. So one of the best resources for you to figure out who's buying what you're selling is to look at the state and agency forecasts. And actually, Kitsap Economic Development Council has a web page with a lot of this information in it, and that link will show up later in the presentation. Knowing the NAICS code, how to search for the NAICS codes, and NAICS codes in themselves can be a bugaboo for both small and prime contractors. If there's a bridge building opportunity and it comes under the NAICS code for general construction, I think it's 23620. And you specialize in excavating, and you have the excavating NAICS code, you cannot bid on this opportunity if you don't have the right NAICS code listed as your primary code in the federal database. Let's talk about the Federal Procurement Data System. This is also known as FPDS. And this is a gold mine of information. And you could find, if you wanted to look up your competition, you can find your competition on there to see if they've won any federal contracts, how much money it was, and how long they've been winning contracts. So anyway, we'll go into that a little bit also. Identifying appropriate programs. So, are you looking for construction as a prime? Are you looking as a subcontractor? One of the big topics for the Olympic Peninsula will be the fish passages that are have been awarded to Kiewit, and Kiewit is looking for subcontractors. So if you wanted to win that award, it's already too late, but it's not too late to get in line to work with Kiewit as a sub on there. Look at the agency's strategic plans. Look at Exhibit 300s, review the OMB watch list, find other research tools, look at subscription-based resources like Washington Web's, MRSC, the multiple research sources for the state of Washington, GovWin, BGov, Onvia, and Set Aside Alert. And some of these are free and some of them are not, but you just have to kind of pay attention. If you're interested in doing work for the U.S. Forest Service, that's actually under the USDA, and they have alerts of their own, and it's all these in here. So if you need guidance on us, we can help you figure that out. Okay, so Washington State market research. So in the state of Washington, if you're looking for public works, the number one place is with the Department of Enterprise Services. And that's that very first link at the top. And this is public works in construction. The first bullet below that is the job order contracts known as JOCs. And these are long-term contracts that are awarded to businesses throughout the state. They have two prime contractors, and then they have four accessory contractors placed geographically around the state. And last December, we had a really great workshop with the JOCs, and their number one goal was to find small businesses because they are required to use small businesses as part of the successful completion of their JOCs. And I think it's like 90% of the work has to be done by a small business. So keep that in mind. Washington Webs, and actually Webs, if you were just looking for something like the Port of Tacoma, you can get email updates specifically, for Port of Tacoma, Port of Seattle, whatever it is, University of Washington, WSU. Anyway, keep that in mind. MRSC is, again, one of those best kept little secrets in the state of Washington. And you can subscribe to MRSC for free. But for $75 a year, you'll get some added resources. But if you want to see who they represent, they have a list of participating agencies, that includes, water districts, school districts, fire districts, PUDs, libraries, et cetera, et cetera. So, if you're not in construction and, say you're in catering or graphic design, there's a lot of different agencies that need the services that you provide. In regards to the USDOT, I listed the WashDOT projects first, and then, they also have under the transportation info, the mapping, which is, it's really a cool map where you can click on this and get a scope of, what's in your region that's going on. And then our friends at SBTRC, can answer your questions on any of these. PTAC can be a hand, but because we're working and partnering with the Small Business Transportation Resource Center, they will be a huge asset for you. Same thing with the Federal Highways Administration and these projects that are going on with them. And then I only listed a couple of the colleges and universities, UW and WSU, on what their projects are. So just take a few moments after our class today and kind of peruse these links and see what's out there for you. And actually, let me just click on the WSU projects and see if I can get that opened up for you. And all right, so Andy, did the University of Washington show up? Or do I have to share my screen again?
All I see is the Washington State Opportunities for Primes and Subs.
Okay, just a second. I need to share again. Hold on.
And Leslie,
Okay. Yes.
A quick question about WEPS and MRSC. Is there any duplications in the opportunities between WEPS and MRSC?
Well, there are some opportunity, duplications, but the MRSC actually, I think, in addition to the big guys, they really pull in a lot of the really small entities that are not necessarily on webs. So, it doesn't hurt to kind of have an idea or to be able to scroll through both of those. So on here, I just wanted you to see the University of Washington upcoming projects that they have. And something that, you're looking at the renovation of the Kincaid Hall, or actually the Foster School business expansion. Anyway, these are really good resources for you to check into what's locally to you. All right, so I go back to the ranch. Oh, sure. All right. Moving ahead here. Okay, so in here on the federal market research, the #1 place was called FedBizOps or FBO.gov. And the federal business opportunities are now housed under beta.sam.gov. And like all things with sam.gov, you have to have a registered profile, and then you can go in and do the searching through FedBizOpps. And, like if you're looking for only things from the US Forest Service Region 6, which is kind of the Pacific Northwest, Washington and Oregon, you can kind of filter it by agency, or, you can look at, past experiences, past contracts. You can also see who won the contracts, and, and if it was a contract that you were interested in, you could reach out to the prime and, sell your pitch to them about maybe working for them as a subcontractor. So, and also on this slide, we have PTAC's bid match, and this is an email that you can set up using your keywords, and it sends a daily email listing of opportunities. So if you're in construction and you want to know roofing and painting and footings and foundations and framing and anything that has those words in the contract will pop up in this email. And you're going to discover that you're going to spend a lot of time looking in a lot of different places for those resources. And what we would recommend is a 30-day free trial, just to kind of see how this works, and if it would be beneficial to you. And if it is, this is the only thing that PTAC charges, and it's $165 a year. And because we're primarily funded by the Department of Defense, there's no profit in it for PTAC. It searches in 41 federal sites, in addition to FBO, Federal Business Opportunities, and DLA, which is a Defense Logistics Agency. There's 40 international sites and almost 2,000 state and local sites. So it might be something worthwhile for you to just give it a try. Okay, so in SAM, Beta SAM, it shows what the government has bought in the past, but FedBizOpps is also where they go to advertise upcoming projects. So, it's past and future. So this little slide needs a little bit of updating, but yeah, it's both past and future. USAspending.gov. This is one of my very, very favorite places to go. And this is really simple to work with. In all things SAM, you're going to discover that sometimes there's a little bit of an issue with the learning curve. So if you want to start kind of quick and easy, go to usaspending.gov and just kind of wander your way around there and see what'll work best for you. The third bullet is the one I was talking to you from Kitsap Economic Development Agency. And this really has, the forecast for the Navy, the Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Air Force, Forest Service, the Department of Interior. So if you go and look at that, it'll be real easy for you to kind of wander around there also. Networking, this is part of your market strategy, is networking. Go to every networking event you can do. And since it's a brave new world for networking, it's you becoming familiar with Zoom and Spot, applications for meetings and matchmaking. teaming, collaborating, joint venturing. And, you may team with another small company. And depending on the federal agency, the Small Business Administration has to approve, joint venturing. But, for collaborating and teaming or, subcontracting or whatever, this is really a good way to move forward. Come on. All right, so I see we have a raised hand from Andrew. Andrew, what do you got?
Message from Pat R is asking if you can elaborate on usaspending.gov and how to use it for subcontracting.
Okay, well, let me try to click through here. And so I'll have to go out and then come back in. So just bear with me. Okay, so this is usaspending.gov. And if you go into the Spending Explorer and you want to just look at agencies, and they've made a lot of updates on this. Let's look at the Department of Defense. And in the Department of Defense, I'm looking for Army, operations and maintenance. And in here, we'll do administration. Anyway, you can kind of drill down on any of these. And if you go over on the left-hand side, and you click on this aspect, it'll bring you back to here. But if you want to look at grants, so that's just, if you want to look at a keyword search, and let's type in shoes. And so evidently, the Department of Defense is buying a lot of shoes. And this first one is a miscellaneous foreign award. The second one is Wolverine Worldwide. And I'm going to sort this by action date. So now I have recent ones. So the Department of Justice is buying clothing and shoes from Gelco. And in here, I can see a breakdown of this whole thing. But if I wanted to do an advanced search, and in the keyword, I'm just going to put in the name of the agency. Let's type in Brook and Brook. This is a construction company in the Olympic Peninsula. And, I'll try to get everything that I can get on them and submit. And so this is all the federal contracts that Brook and Brook have received over the years. And I'm going to sort this by end date. And I see that they have one that's expiring. Well, it just expired this month. But, if there was one that was still open, I would click on it to see more information about Brook and Brook. Maybe they're my competition, but maybe I'm a small business and I want to do work with them. So, this is part of your research going down the road. If it's my competition, I really need to know, how often they're getting these contracts. And, if it's outside of my scope, then I really want to know how I can work with them, so that I can generate also. Anyway, I hope that answers the question, and we'll head back to our little slideshow here. Okay, so moving on. Some other ways to do market strategy is to look at the subcontracts, and this includes, the state of Washington. If you're looking at, let's say, a construction company called William Winkler, and say they're doing some rebuilding over on the west side of the state, I would look at who their subcontractors are. And most of these large primes have a portal for subcontractors. So, you'll want to get that information at our upcoming networking events and see how you can get on the list. You need to know and understand what agencies are buying through credit cards and small dollar requests for quotes. And if the JBLM is buying merchandise, under $10,000 on credit card, maybe they need to know, that you accept their cards and you have products that they need. GSA activity, this is a big one. Particularly because GSA is the Costco to the federal government. And getting on a GSA schedule is everybody's dream. It's not so easy to accomplish. But, if you go in and look at the GSA schedules and see that somebody is on the GSA contract to sell shoes to the federal government, and you're a shoemaker, maybe you want to talk to whoever this is. Let's talk about emergency purchases. During fire season, this is, no pun intended, the hottest commodity around. They're always shorthanded on transportation vehicles, water vehicles, shower vehicles, helicopters, you name it. And, if you can be on those lists through the U.S. Forest Service, the Department of Natural Resources, at least they know that you're there. The Defense Supply Center, which is unique to just the Department of Defense, they have their own special needs. And then, on the other side, we have other websites. Like the first one up there is the U.S. Forest Service. And then we have, the second one is the Defense Logistics Agency. And next bullet down is unisglobal.com. And then down to DIBS, and then Beta SAM. Beta SAM now gives you the ability, again, you can look anybody up there, and you can look at just the entity itself, like what's their cage code number, what's their DUNS number. And then once you have that information, you can plug that into the contracting side to see if they've won any federal contracts. And then lastly on here, we included a link from the state of Oregon. So let me tell you something about anybody who has registered to do government contracting with the federal government. All of that information is public information except for your financial information, and that is not public. And so nobody should be surprised that I could bring up Brook and Brook today, because when they signed up for SAM, they acknowledged, that this is made available. So just keep that in mind. So, if you wanted to get directly into the contract data on SAM, into the FPDS section, this top link will take you there. And then we have the federal government agency forecasts that is kind of in tandem to what Kitsap was providing. And then again, if you wanted to get directly to federal business opportunities in SAM, fbohome.sam.gov. And then, excuse me, the USA spending again. And then actually this last one here is worth its weight in gold. This is from the Small Business Administration, and it's a dynamic small business search. And I want to find all of the companies in the state of Washington, in Clallam County, who are listed as veteran-owned small businesses. So you click, 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 and it brings up a report as to how many veteran-owned businesses are. So if you're a veteran-owned business in the Olympic Peninsula and you want to see who your local competition is for set-asides or for your NAICS code, the industry that you're in, this is really a quick and simple little way to do that. I highly recommend it. So when you're looking for opportunities, remember anything under $25,000 is not advertised at the federal level. And so that means that you have to market to each agency. JBLM, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and to each office for the decision makers. If you're dealing with agriculture, you need to talk to the Farm Service Office, close to you about whatever it is that you're selling. Because if they have opportunities under 25,000, odds are you're not going to see it, but you could get on their mailing list, or if something comes up, they'll send you a notice. And actually, PTAC gets a lot of these things from the agencies that we try to share with our clients. So, if there's a particular agency that you would like to hear from, talk to PTAC and we can kind of work around the process for you to get some updates. So if it's over $25,000, it is required to be advertised through fbo.gov. And remember that, sources sought notices. You can be on a mailing list. If you're in construction and you do gasoline or fuel tank installation underground, it's kind of a unique commodity. But Malmstrom Air Force Base was looking specifically for someone close to Malmstrom who did that. So put out a sources sought notice to a very small geographic area, which included Spokane. And one of my clients, when I was in Spokane, actually was awarded this contract at a Malmstrom. So it's critical that they know, what you do and, how to get in touch with you. One of the things that kind of pops up in this particular slide is the fact that you see fedconnect.net. .net is not a government agency. .net is a commercial entity that's probably going to charge you a fee. And so you need to do your due diligence to determine whether or not these type of entities are something that will benefit you down the road. um, single-faced industry, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is really good at having industry days. So if you're Portland or Walla Walla or wherever you are, if you have a chance to go to one of these industry days, it's really a great opportunity for you because they make it very personalized to you and your small business. And I'm hoping that someday, not too far down the road, we'll get back to the in-person meetings. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit last week. Understanding, what the size constraints are. So micro purchases, 0 to 10,000, that's a direct buy, no competition. But if it's between 10 and 25,000, they're required to get 3 bids, and then the contracting officer will make the decision on that same day. If it's from 25,000 to 250,000, they're required to have that advertised on FBO, and then they look at the best value, not necessarily the lowest price, but the best value. So they're really looking for things like past performance and all that other criteria that we kind of just went over. So there's a simplified acquisition threshold over anything over $250,000, and that requires a competitive bid. And it can take 3 to 6 months for these to be decided on. And these are automatically set aside for small businesses unless there's an exception to be found. So when they're set aside for small business, it starts out as only small business, but depending on the agency and depending on the time within the federal fiscal year, they may decide that it needs to be set aside for a service disabled small business or a woman-owned or an 8A entity. And in the last quarter of the federal fiscal year, it's a feeding frenzy if they have not met their set-asides, and they're rabid to get these contracts awarded to any of those agencies that they have not met their goals on. The number one set-aside that is rarely met, if ever, is hub zone. So if you're on the Olympic Peninsula, you are in a hub zone. If you're not on the Olympic Peninsula, you could be on a hub zone. It just depends. There are little pockets here and there that are dictated by the US Census Bureau. Okay, so here's a whole bunch of other thresholds and stuff that I won't go into depth on here, but just so that you can kind of get a grip as to sole source, hub zone. They can sole source up to $2.5 million for manufacturing, $4.5 million for other contracts. But anyway, this slide here will be good to keep that information. So we talked about this in the last week or so about contracting with the federal government, and regionally for Washington State, the US Navy, JBLM, Housing and Urban Development, the Veterans Administration, US Forest Service, which again is the Department of Agriculture, SBA, Defense Logistics Agency, US Army Corps of Engineers, and GSA. One of the things that I wanted to tell you about the Small Business Administration is they hire consultants all the time. If you're an in accounting, or you have a law degree and know a thing or two about government contracts, SBA hires trainers all the time. So don't overlook them as a potential, if you're not in construction, but maybe you're really good at developing marketing materials for the government, and SBA is looking for somebody that can teach a class on marketing materials. Keep that in mind. So another familiar screenshot. Yes, this is the old version of SAM. It's going away as of next week. I think it's April 24th. But this site here is so much easier to work in, to first to get registered, but where it says search records right here on the right side of the screen, they make this pretty simple for you to go in and do some market research on any company, and because we brought up Brook and Brook on that one portal for USA Spending, you could type in Brook and Brook under the search records, and you can get all their contact information and their status as a small business. Anyway, just keep that in mind. This is going to be the new and improved look of SAM, and sometimes newer is not always better. So just brace yourself for a little bit of a learning curve in here to do the exact same thing that you were doing in the old one. And it may take you a little while, but the difference between new SAM and old SAM is the SAM beta is actually more one-stop shopping. And in the old days, you had to have a login to SAM, a login to FBO, a login to FPDS, all of these other acronyms, you had to have separate logins. And now you only need one login and to get into the master SAM, and then dig down from there. When you get into SAM, there are 3 areas that you want to make sure you visit. FBO is now called Contract Opportunities, and SAM is where you find the entity registrations. And it's not just your entity, it's your competition. And then under the FPDS, they still call it the Federal Procurement Data System under SAM. So remember that as you're digging around down there. I was thinking right when we took the break, I went to fpds.gov and typed in Brook and Brook construction. I just wanted you to see how this popped up and kind of give you a real quick walkthrough on this. It tells me that there were 11 federal contracts as of April 15th, 2021. On the left side, you'll see the names of the departments that they have worked with, and then the actual contracting agency names. And over on the left side, you can sort these by date. You'll see this first one is dated in 2002. And so I don't know if you saw this before, but anyway, I had technical problems. But anyway, this is the screen. On the left-hand side, the department and agency information. On the right-hand side, you can sort by any of these aspects over here. And because this is 2002, I'm going to sort it again. And so this says 2005, 2004, 2003. And I know that there's more than these. The problem is with the name that I put in there. And if I come back and just back up to say Brook and Brook without the incorporated on it, it will bring up, actually nothing on this one. Okay, so let me just do Brook. Go. Oh, really? Oh, nothing. All right, so let me back off on this. So only the name Brook. And then you end up with people named Brook. And this is Brook and Brook Construction. One of the things when you register in the federal database, okay, so this is Brook and Brook Construction without the incorporated on it. So it, in order to do a good search on your competition, you want to make sure you use whatever iterations of their name. So on here, it says there's 23 contracts. The first one was in 1983. And same thing with the dates on here. But I know that, they have some other contracts. So that's Department of Transportation. I want to look at only the Department of Defense, which is actually the US Army. And, some of these are not real big contracts. This is just for Broken Stone. This is civil engineering construction. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to let you see that before we move forward. So moving back to our slideshow. All right, so now this is all about the marketing process, how you sell yourself to the agencies. It's about the materials. The number one issue is the relationships that you are going to have. And if you're just getting started, the best relationship you can have is with PTAC. And we will try to get you connected with the agencies. And I know that SBTRC is also really good at connecting you with transportation related agencies. So, and keep it specific. One of the things we talked about in the last couple of weeks was not taking the shotgun approach to your audience. Find a specific audience and work on that. Getting noticed. All right, this is where number one rule is be professional. Your email, websites, dressing the part. And some of us are from a different generation, and email is still very, very, very important to us. I know that text messaging is getting to be the way of the world, but the reality is you need an audit trail. You need documentation that you sent an email, and because down the road you may need to have proof of communication, and using email is a good way to do that. Know the specific niche that you're looking for. In this case, if you make blue widgets and the world is full of red widgets, what's the reality of your industry to what you're trying to do? You can't be all things to all agencies. So you need to find your special area and stick with it. You need to be an expert in what you do. and communicate that to contracting officers, going to networking events. And then you have to be able to prove it. Well, how do you do that? Well, we'll talk about that coming down the road. You need to address your capacity. If I can make 10,000 widgets a month, what's the reality if I get a federal contract for 100,000 widgets that will need to be delivered in, say, 60 days? Is that within my capacity? And, what are the risks? Can I scale up to meet the capacity needed for a project? You have to know and understand all of these aspects about your business. So NAVSEA, which is the US Navy, they sent this little snapshot of the critical need of the contractor's ability to manage, and the contractor's technical ability, and the contractor's capacity in dealing with the projects. And one of the key takeaways from this slide is capacity refers to matters such as the magnitude of the task and the amount of equipment or facilities involved and the size of the staff needed. So keep that in mind. Potential capability is something that they will listen to, but you have to know your scalability for your company. All right, so where do you get noticed? Conferences, vendor outreach sessions, agency and base events, matchmaking, social events for professional associations, and getting a referral from a decision maker. If you've been working very closely with the SBA and they find that you have outstanding deliverance of the criteria that they need, maybe that would be a good referral for you. And lastly on here is virtual. Does your company have a virtual presence via email, blogging, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, things like TikTok and Snapchat? A lot of those, you have to really be able to delineate what's appropriate for government to be looking at. And so, if you're on Twitter, you need to see who's actually on there and who has the potential to follow you. So on my Twitter account, one of the brightest days that I had was when the Pacific Fleet followed me, and I post things relative to government contracting. And so you have to kind of find your niche and see where it can take you. Oh, and do not overlook LinkedIn. LinkedIn is gaining steam as the professional resource. It was kind of back in the shadows for a long time. Facebook was kind of overtaking everything, but I think most professionals are really focused on LinkedIn, whereas families and friends are on Facebook. So just keep that in mind. If you're a little coffee shop, you probably need to be on both. It depends on who your target audience is. So you need to identify the real decision makers. So government contracting, they have a really, really strict process that has to be in compliance with the FARs, Federal Acquisition Regulations. And you'll hear that acronym a lot, FAR, FARs, Federal Acquisition Regulations. And it is exactly what it says it is. These are all the rules and regulations for all procurement for the federal government. It does not go top down. So you have to understand that there's 3 layers of decision makers. And the size of the purchase determines who the decision maker is. And each layer has a different purpose or responsibility. So who are these guys? Program managers are technical representatives. They look for technical expertise, can include end users, and they can make technical or vendor recommendations. They look for things that are difficult to locate, and you might use OSDBU and contracting officers to refer you. It's all about relationships. So if you're looking to sell something for aircraft at your local Air Force base, probably you want to be able to talk to the crew chief and connect with him and do a demo or something. But you have to know who you're talking to. And then they'll take it to the next one, which is contracting officers. And they can actually make the legal purchase and get the government all the services and products that they need. And they're the ones who post things to Fed BizOps. So they're kind of important people. So you have small business representatives, the Office of Small Business Units, and I'll go into that a little bit more. SBRs, OSPs, remember when we talked about the alphabet soup? And just remember that each agency has to meet their small business goals of 23% for set-asides. And so look for your OSDBU or your OSBP. So yeah, we're going to target specific people. And the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, OSDBU. So the VA, Department of Agriculture, you name it, they all have one of these entities, at least one. And they are looking for credible vendors. And what they want to see is your capability statement. Contracting officers are looking for credible bidders. And they're looking for an entry email that we'll talk about, the capability statements, which we will talk about, and your PowerPoints. So, and it's not just PowerPoints anymore. You need to be able to do a presentation to them, like a 10-minute presentation. And if PowerPoint's your thing, that's great. If you have like a drone service, maybe you want to do some videotaping by drone and use that as an example of your work. Program managers, they are the experts. And again, they're looking for an entry email, your capability statement, and they're looking for case studies, white papers on, things that you have done. excuse me. And finally, the end user, that's the crew chief. Or, that is, maybe the USDOT. It's the Federal Highway Administration, if you're doing something with federal highways. And they wouldn't mind a phone call, but they would like your capability statement in hard copy and also a case study. So going down the road, you can position yourself as the prime contractor or a subcontractor, or maybe you want to be a teaming partner one way or the other. If you're the subcontractor and you don't have enough resources, maybe you want to team with a larger company. If you're a large company and you do not qualify as a veteran-owned small business, maybe you want to do a joint venture with a certified veteran-owned small business to do a project for the Veterans Administration. So, it can go a lot of different ways if you do it this way. So you need to mitigate the risk of moving forward. And you do that by developing a niche statement. And, that's like a 20-second matchmaking pitch or elevator pitch. People ask you, well, what do you do? And some of you may already have something down, but, a 20 or 30-second max is all you get sometimes. You have to build a powerful capability statement. Okay, so you've heard capability, and all of this really means to the layman are your marketing materials and your brochures. And at the state level and at the federal level, they have different requirements for each aspect of that. So you can't just give like one of your commercial brochures to the Army because they're not going to accept it. So we'll talk about capability statements here pretty quick. They're looking for past performance, and maybe you have no federal or state past performance, but you have a lot of commercial past performance. Maybe in construction, you've built some schools or medical facilities. That kind of information is important when you're just getting started. And then as you get any government project, then you start adding those onto your capability statement. Financial stability. This is critical. We talked about being able to scale up. The other day we had Graham Rolson talk about going out and getting a line of credit before you need it. And the same thing for government contracting. Make sure that you have all your ducks in the row so that if you have an opportunity that you have decided is within your scope, you can tap into those resources to scale to where you need to go. Make sure you have the capacity to run 100,000 widgets in 60 days instead of 6 months. Look at partners, who can help you, who would you constitute as a partner? Well, it could be something informal like a subcontractor that you can outsource some of your work to, but you have to beware because you are accountable for the quality of, what comes back. But, your partner might be your banker, making sure that everything is in proper working order. Or maybe, you're thinking about doing a joint venture, with a prime, and, so maybe that's your partner. And you have to know how to put together a strong RFP response. And that is really what delineates you from so many other bidders. And actually, there's an upcoming workshop, and I'm going to step out here for a second. Lisa Langstrom, our Washington PTAC from Snohomish, has an upcoming workshop. And so, Lisa, can you talk a little bit about dissecting an RFP and the need for small businesses to know how to do that?
Absolutely. You bet. Thank you, Leslie. We do a dissection of an RFP workshop, and it's a 2-day experience. We put you through a simulation of a true solicitation. It is a state contract, and we work through all the elements of digging in. And many of the things that you are experiencing in government contracting are very to the book and rigid, and it's very important to dig in and get your hands in it and understand how to do some of the things we talk about in presentations. This one is very interactive. Leslie, I'm sure, has shared our website, and if you are interested, it is listed in Economic Alliance's calendar. It is going to be May 17th and 18th. The other workshop that we're doing is also teaming strategies and concepts. And that is a big part of being successful while you start in government contracting. Having those relationships and having members that you can team with and partner to fulfill a bid is essential. I'm sure the contracting company that you talked about, Leslie, over in the peninsula, Birch and Birch, or Burke and Burke, they did like with all those trucks and all that staff. They started out slow and they built from there. And I'm sure partnering and subcontracting was a big part of that success beginning. So that's it.
So thanks, Lisa. The thing about Washington PTAC, and over these last 3 weeks, we've only had 3 hours, and each of these 3 days, and we barely hit the tip of the iceberg. And so Washington PTAC is a huge resource on our event calendar, and washingtonptac.org, and it all of the classes are free of charge. So register in any of those that you are interested in. And then again, on the SBTRC side, like this event that Jessica talked to us a little bit earlier, it's the same thing. They have, all things relative to transportation. And so look at these as really good resources for you to get educated and learn how to grow your businesses. So with that.
Yes. Leslie, there was a question about the duration of the classes, because I said it was 2 days. It is 2.5 hours on the 17th, 2.5 hours on the 18th, and there is pre-work. You will read through the solicitation. It could take you up to 2 hours. So the commitment overall is 7 to 8 hours total for this experience. And we have had some great feedback and people that have been able to launch into the unknown, and they're not as fearful as they were. So it's really been a nice foundational workshop for folks that haven't done requests for quotes or proposals. So I'll put it in the chat, and I'll put the link as well.
All right. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, really and truly, the RFP response, the first one you do can be daunting. And this resource, I actually sat through this workshop when I first came back in October for Washington PTAC, and it's really a great class. I highly recommend it. So the last thing on mitigating risk is debriefing. Win or lose. And the thing that you have to know about debriefing is, depending on the agency, generally they only allow you to request a debriefing up to 3 days after the award. So if you're a week out, then odds are you won't get a debriefing. But why didn't I win this contract? Your bid was too high. Or why didn't I win this contract? Well, you didn't sign your bid. Or could be anything, but those are good learning opportunities for you. If you win it, you can ask, well, how close was the next bidder, or what helped delineate you to win, and they'll say, well, is your past performance or your capacity or something like that. So just pay attention to those. So when you are developing your strategy, you have to look at opportunities. Okay, what opportunities in the past were available and what did I miss? Okay, what is it that's going on right now and what's coming down the road? At the federal level, because of COVID, everything is turned a little upside down. And hopefully we are just now starting to get some momentum and get moving again to a more traditional way of doing business. But, in the past, did all the contracts go to one or two companies? And if so, why was that? But are there changes in the federal acquisition regulations? Are there changes in the FAR as to how they do business? If I was always awarded this contract because of ABC, and in the FARs, they said, well, now you have to do XYZ, that could change the future of the opportunities. So you have to stay on top of those. Capability statement. Put together your brochure, 1 page. And if you have, it's like, if you're a mature person with decades of experience, it's hard to get everything on 1 page in a resume. So the same thing can be said for your capability statement, but there's key information that has to be on there, and they're really not into a lot of heavy reading. They want bulleted points. They want to know what your core competencies are, what your past performance is, what makes you different from your competition, what's your company address, phone number, email. And anyway, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But you have to decide if a bid is bid or no bid. And you need to figure out who's the decision maker in your organization, and who's the decision maker on the other side. And they have to come to terms with each other, and you as a business have to have everything prepared exactly correct and submit it to the contracting officer. and, just see how these things kind of play out. Know what a contract vehicle is, and that's on the next page, and how to utilize, manage, and fine tune your CRM system, your contact resource management system. Is it an address book in your Outlook? Is it a spreadsheet? Is it a formal database you put together in Microsoft Access? Or do you have something like Salesforce that you're using? All of those are important. All right, so now we're going to get into the actual capability statement section. And so let's talk about communications, collaboration, and connecting. So you have, in order to reach who's ever making the decisions, you need to follow all of the, or know and understand all of the registration portals. Being registered in SAM is one thing, but your profile automatically pops up in SBDS, Small Business. It's a SBA system for this small business search mechanism. And then in agencies, the thing about SBDS is unless you go in and tweak it, you're going to be missing some important areas. So we can talk about that later, I guess. Okay, your business card is critical. Having your matchmaking pitch, being able to edit your capability statement. Have your website include like a government tab so that government agencies can see it, and then you want to include on there a downloadable version of your capability statement. Look at the contract vehicles. Let's talk about white papers. If you are in innovation and research, white papers will be critical. But I had a company, an industrial type of company, who created a device that was that really changed a lot of aircraft processes. And so they had to submit their white paper in order to get this approved. Case studies, your case studies and, comparisons to other companies. Anyway, you need to kind of start keeping a library of resources for you. Public relations, again, it's all about who you know, and maximizing your CRM system. And, sometimes that's really a simplified system, but sometimes they can be very, very complex, and you need to know what's a good fit for your company. And advertising. Do you advertise to the federal government? Do they have a base newsletter or newspaper? You need to know those things. Okay, so let's talk about your business card. Use both sides of the paper. Do not use coded paper. Include your company name, your title, all the important contact information. What do you do? If it's Washington Excavating, that kind of tells me what you do. But if it's like Evergreen Services, I have no idea what Evergreen Services does. So, you need to have a tagline for your company the best small business for building roads, or whatever it is that you do. Putting your DUNS number and your NAICS code on there, any certifications, and contract vehicles. And bear in mind, this is on your business card. So now you know why you need front and back. But it needs to be really short and sweet. When you put your DUNS number on there, you don't have to put DUNS number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You just put the number. And the NAICS code, you just put the number on there. And government agencies knows what those are. If you are a EDWOSB, they don't need a definition. They know what that is. If you're a DBE or MBE, they know what that is. Okay, so you have to focus on your matchmaking pitch. And actually there's ongoing classes. And I think that we just had one not too long ago for PTAC. I don't know what it is in the cycle. Because it's PTAC, each agency, Snohomish or Olympic or Kitsap, we all have our own list of classes. And but anyway, doing your matchmaking pitch is really going to be important, particularly for next week, where you will have the opportunity to spend some time with some prime contractors. Remember that no company does everything. And you have to use the example of a reverse pyramid and make it short and sweet. We provide road building. Our core competencies are road building and bridges. We are the absolute best at road building. We are different because we have state-of-the-art equipment to build roads. We can help your agency or office buy, and this is where you would, you could put 2 words on there, responsive and responsible. They know what that means. You have the capacity. We know how to fill out paperwork, but you have to make these kind of short and sweet. All right, so let's talk about the entry email. Your subject line needs to use the company name. And so it could be Miller Construction request to meet. Because it's coming from Leslie Miller. If it's Miller Construction, request to meet. And the compelling reason in the body is, talking about safety issues. Maybe I teach classes on safety issues, or I can do OSHA training or COVID training or whatever it is, whatever the compelling reason is. And in your request, you have to ask something. I would like to schedule an appointment with you. I would like to talk to you on the phone, whatever it is. And then be sure to leave it open that they can contact you, or you would like to contact them again, after the beginning of the new federal fiscal year, whatever. You guys get the drill. So Target Gov actually has a pretty good email tips. Number 1 is never say introduce. I'd like to introduce my company to you. it should be more like, let me tell you about my company, or my company has, been the recent awardee on Washington State projects for WashDOT. And then in every email, in the event you don't have the opportunity to respond sooner, I will contact you for follow-up on a certain date and time. And then always include your personal contact information and credentials in every communication. And one of the things that I recommend that you pay attention to is the reply all aspect. If more than one person is in this conversation, pay attention as to who actually needs to be in your conversation. And then watch what happens when you have had a long conversation with somebody and you reply all, and you have, I don't know, 25 pages of conversation in that email underneath what you're saying. So just make sure you clean it out a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about the website. So in here, I have two companies that have government websites. And so I'm going to click on these, and then I'll go back and share these. So just bear with me as I go to Pinnacle. And okay, so this is Pinnacle Investigations. And this was one of my clients in Spokane. And they have the government side, operating history, mission statement, the preference, that's what delineates them from anybody else. And, the basic cage code, DUNS, NAICS code, SIN numbers, set asides. All of these are important to know. And then the other one, go back to this, is eclipse, symmetry, and printing. And in here, right up at the top, you see that it says capabilities. And in the capabilities, they tell you it's about screen printing and laser cutting and die cutting and knife cutting and assembly, embossing. Okay, so what's wrong with this page? They did not include DUNS numbers, cage codes, NAICS codes, any or all of the above. So if I were their PTAC, I would recommend that they make some changes on this. Okay. Back to where we were. Okay, so when you are doing your website, do make sure you have a government tab or button, or you can call it capabilities because government knows what that means. Use government verbiage and terminology, include case studies, be as specific as possible regarding the benefits to the customer, include metrics, and include differentiators. Do not use music or videos. Do not use industry jargon, and hide the personal contact info. That's kind of a big deal. Everything that you have coming from your SAM profile should reflect your Gov sales at your And, so anyway, just, keep that personalized. And part of the problem is, the bots that are searching the web these days, they land on an email, and, Billy Bob, who's the sales manager, could be getting all these emails because his email is actually on the website. So make sure that your web guys know how to do this. Look at government social media. So Health and Human Services and GSA, well, Health and Human Services have been on Facebook and Twitter. GSA is on everything: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, blogging, GSA social media directory, and RSS. The Army, has a whole bunch of other resources. So whoever you're targeting, look to see where they're at. And then if you're interested in doing business with them, you should be following them. And so, and with that in mind, if you're targeting to the Pacific Fleet on Twitter, and you name them in a Twitter that you post, they're going to start paying attention to you. And if you are a good, strong, reputable tweeter, they could come and follow you. So just pay attention to that. You have to kind of keep things active. Nothing is worse than a social media site that's old. So keep that in mind. You need to update. Having blogs is really informative. Especially if you are in education or training, or you're in marketing and you're talking about trends or something. That's important. LinkedIn and Twitter we talked about, Facebook. And in Facebook, your company should be highlighting employees, community involvement, special projects, and just keep that in mind. And then in Pinterest, new products. Back in the day, Pinterest was just kind of like a digital magazine that you'd flip through, but now it's so much more informative. So if you are from the Olympic Peninsula and you do graphic design and you're posting images of beaches and forests, and and you include some samples of your work, that catches everybody's eyes. And then news feeds, can you get on any of these news feeds, or could you invite the Pacific Fleet to participate? But bear in mind that particularly Department of Defense has restrictions on what they can and cannot see and do on social media. Okay, white papers. This is all about organizational policy, position, philosophy, and you have to present not too detailed, and that's critical, technical explanation of whatever it is that you're doing. Pose a technology-oriented problem or question, and then answer it or propose a solution that's relative to your company. The terms policy paper or position paper, technology paper or product paper or issue paper are often used in place of white paper. So just you need to develop a good write-up about your company and how it got there and how you compare to others. All right, so let's say you have this wonderful new product that will directly impact the federal government. you do not send out a press release to the newspapers. You send out a news release to targeted government contracts. And let's say it's firefighting equipment or materials for the US Forest Service or the Department of Natural Resources. And you send it to the contracting officers or the government contacts. And it has to be real news. You finally received final approval on this and you're moving forward. You just need some real good guidance on how to do a news release. And if you do it via email, and you can also post it online, particularly in like Twitter, where it can be shared and go viral. So things like contract wins, completions, new hires. You hired actually really good. Here's a really good real example. Vanner Management, very large prime, who will be here actually maybe at 2:45 today. They hired Tom Reese from Spokane to do their marketing. So that would be a really great news release, and I'm sure they did that already. The awards they've won, new services or products, certifications, branded services or products. So keep that in mind for your news releases. Okay, so remember when I told you we were going to talk about purchase vehicles? They're designed to make it easier for you to work with the agencies. And depending on the agencies, there's different types of these, but these have been vetted through GSA. So, they kind of reviewed these, and these are provided to you based off of their criteria. So IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. We need 100 widgets today. And when we use all this up, we'll need another 100 widgets. So we don't know when the next order will be. And we're not real sure about the quantity. Maybe we'll need 200 widgets next time. That's IDIQ. Credit card, P card, purchase card, all the same thing. GSA schedule, the grandmother of them all, that for supplying products and services. It doesn't matter if it's catering or fire equipment or widgets. GSA sells just about everything except for blue widgets, which you manufacture. So we kind of had that conversation earlier. And, when you go down the litany of when it goes out to bid, if GSA Services sells blue widgets and that's all you make, they're going to sell them. They're going to have the opportunity to provide those to the agency before you do. So what I would recommend is that you get on the GSA schedule and you sell your blue widgets to GSA. GWAC, government-wide acquisition contract. BPA, blanket purchase agreement. And then set asides, that's a purchase vehicle example. Set aside, HubZone, 8A, SDVO SB, should be SDVO SB. And those are all certifications. So the thing on these are you have to follow the rules. HubZone is only for historically underutilized business zones. The 8A is owned by at least 51% socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, and service disabled veteran-owned small business. So those are your purchase vehicle examples. So your very best tool is your capability statement. And it is what opens doors. And, you know, to build a relationship and get a meeting with the contracting officer, and maybe it's at an event like the Meet the Bigs event or something. And I know Fairchild Air Force Base, we always had, you know, these great big events with them, and you are talking, you know, across the table from the contracting officer who does all of this. If you come into a meeting without your capability statement, you know, they'll wait for you to put one together and then meet with you again later. So if they put out a sources sought or RFI response, they will request your capability statement, and also as part of your RFP. Okay, so in the capability statements, the first thing you want to do is call it a capability statement. You know, that, you know, separates those who know and those who do not know what's going on with the government. It needs your core competencies. It needs your past performance. It needs your differentiators and your company data. Those are required. So in our sample capability statements, in the resource folder, I included I included the seaport capability statement that the US Navy has approved. So if you're looking to work with the Navy, this is what they kind of want to see. And then there's other resources. There's a complete sample batch of capability statements. And then there's some resources for how to do an FBO search, how to do FPDS, Quick Start, Data Dictionary, and then the GSA market research and FPDS. So anyway, there's a bunch of resources in there for you to take a look at. So definition of a capability statement. A lot of the old timers used to just call it a line card. So remember that if you hear that in a conversation, that they're talking about the capability statement. And we've kind of gone over this a lot, you know, as far as what it needs to have in it, and making sure you communicate all this clearly. So you would also want to have a capability statement for not just government agencies, but for prime contractors, so that they see that you are serious about what you do. And really and truly, it won't matter if these are state or federal. For the primes, you know, all the primes would appreciate your capability statement. NAICS, reps, and certs on your statement help contracting officers make the match. Okay, your NAICS code, North American Industry Classification System. Yeah, that's your 236220 code that says you're in construction. Reps and certs. representations and certifications. You know, if you're certified as a service disabled veteran-owned small business, and then, you know, if you, you know, the point is the contracting officers will be able to weed out those that don't have the right NAICS code. You know, if this is a construction project and you're a painter, and, you know, so your NAICS code should reflect that you're a painter. And use your badges to help agencies and primes meet their goals. So your woman-owned, veteran-owned, hub zone, you know, those are your badges, and they have to meet their goals. Any government work experience, and maybe your only government work experience is as a subcontractor, and that's fine. You know, you just include that as a subcontractor. Show related experience. If all you have done in the past is commercial, then make sure you get that listed. Credentials and training. Yeah, if your key personnel have a whole bunch of alphabet soup after their name for OSHA training or, you know, certifications or whatever it is, that's to your advantage. Or you're an engineering firm and you have PEs, or you're an accounting firm and you have CPAs or CMAs, or, you know, any of those, you know, that's to your advantage. And then, you know, so kind of keep it as your written elevator speech expanded. And, you know, you should know everything that's on there verbatim. So I'm going to have some samples come up here. And we're just going to take a look at this. So the first thing I see on here is that this is 2 pages. It's one piece of paper, but it's 2 pages, which may or may not fly depending on the agency. But on this document, you see a small little summary statement, their core competencies, their past performance, the company snapshot, which is their address and phone number, and then their differentiators, and then NAICS codes. Okay, so on this, there must be another page with the NAICS codes on them because I don't see it right off. Oh, yeah, it's on the next page. Okay, so anyway, oh, so this is probably a before and after. I apologize. So the one on the left is before and the one on the right is after. So the core competencies are bulleted items. And then they have their NAICS codes, PSC codes, company snapshot, differentiators, and past performance. So, yeah, look at the 2 differences on here. And if you're a contracting officer looking at this, you know, they want to see white space. And more often than not, they're very linear, very left brain, and they want rows and columns of information, and they don't want to have to read through a whole bunch of stuff. So by having all those bullets and more white space, you know, it looks cleaner. All right, next slide. All right, so this is another sample, and there's a couple issues with this. The most obvious one is the color and the white print and the small print, and it's really, really, really wordy. It has a couple nice graphics in it, and but you know, this one really needs some cleaning up in it. So, you know, just not enough white space, not enough bullets. The font should be, black font on light surfaces. And so realistically, if you were to print this off as a contracting officer, think about all the ink that it would use for all of those shaded areas. Okay, so when it comes to formatting, keep it short, to the point, one page. Okay, this says double-sided. Less is more. You only have 8 seconds to capture their attention. Make it visually appealing, include the logo, and put it into a couple columns, which will make it easier to read. And then use bold headings, bulleted lists, borders and colors to separate and emphasize the sections. But particularly know who your target audience is, and then try to customize it for them. If you are a manufacturer and you make supplies for the Navy and supplies for the Army that are two totally different things, make a capability statement for the Navy and make one for the Army. Okay, so here's a quick little quiz for you. What do you think? Can you use government logos on your capability statements? And so, really and truly, what do you think that is okay? And the answer to that is no, it's not. No one is authorized to use any government logos without permission. And getting permission may not be easy at all. Using the CVE logo, Certified Veteran Enterprise logo. If you are a certified veteran enterprise, yes, you can use that logo. If you're not certified, no, you cannot. Name contacts for government contracts. On your capability statement, you can put the email address for, govsales@mycompany.com. And maybe it's, John Smith at GovSales. Use both sides of the paper. That's okay in most instances, sometimes not though. So you really have to, pay attention to the requirement, like if you go to a Meet the Bigs and you ask the contracting officer if one page is okay, then in the future you can use one page front and back, or no, they only want the front. So you need to know and understand that. Any size of paper will work. No. Legal size is not acceptable. Letter size is the only thing that they will take. And they don't want a trifold piece of paper. It's just regular letter size. Using QR codes. Government currently doesn't allow readers. So don't use a QR code on a government type of capability statement. Use photos, yes, you absolutely need to use photos. Use of emails as Hotmail, Gmail, Comcast.net are fine. No, that is not recommended. Your company should have your own domain name, and your contact should reflect info@ or govsales@mycompany.com. Hotmail and Gmail and Yahoo, those will have trouble getting through Department of Defense emails not to mention lots and lots of other agencies. And now with the world being turned upside down on IT and cyber terrorism and stuff, you need to have in place your own domain name. Using bullets, yes, absolutely. Use words like on time, best, etc. You have to quantify it. You have to, put in something like 99.9% customer satisfaction, or delivered on time, or something like that. You have to quantify it. Fax numbers. In this day and age, the only people using faxes are the federal government. Yes, the federal government wants you to have a fax number. And years in business or year established. And this can go either way, because I've heard it. If I've been in business for 20 years, or I was established in 1998, but I don't have good past performance, or, I've only worked with, one entity for all that time. It could be good or bad. We probably need to have a conversation about that and kind of get that fleshed out a little bit. In regards to color, make sure you match your logo with the colors that you use in your capability statement. And but do not use solid color pages. Keep it a white background, and then use the color strategically as you design your document. Okay, so in here, you don't want any fancy snazzy fonts. You want just traditional type fonts. So we have all this criteria as to the type of font, what font size it should be, and it should not be smaller than 12 point. And if you're going to use font variety, you can use italic or bold. Maintain borders, with color, and use bullets. And if you use like Garamond or Palatino, those are all serif fonts. And if you use Helvetica, that's sans serif. So you might want to talk to a graphic person or a designer to figure out how to get all of this. If it's 14 point, that's going to take up a lot of room. Lots of repetition on this. I apologize for that. All right, so let's go to customize, and make sure that you put a little of company history on there, and have a little headline, 60 to 100 characters. List the expertise, unique capabilities, particularly like for your key individuals. If you hired a new PE who has been certified for 20 years, you want to indicate that. Make sure your past performance, and then key customers. And this says limit government logos, but you want to get permission before you use any government logos. And then prioritize your strengths, and then list your affiliations, licenses, and capabilities. So when you are trying to get it finished up, it wouldn't hurt to have somebody professionally look at it. And this is kind of what I was talking to you about, quantifying what you have. Like where it says large equipment pools, say we maintain over 100 well-maintained forklifts. And you need to update it often so it doesn't get archived away. And then make sure that your business card, your website, and your capability statements all match in color and fundamental content. Your business cards will be smaller. Make sure that the points of contact are your key people, and pay attention if your key individuals are no longer with the company, and use images. And then yeah, unless the service provider don't sell the jockey, sell the horse. All right, so your audiences will be agencies, prime contractors, teaming partners, joint ventures, and the goal is to obtain a decision maker in each one of these events. So you use a capability statement for opening doors, building relationships, email introductions, going to procurement conferences, industry days, service updates, and in-person briefings. And when you do your capability presentations, and sometimes they want you to do this in person, and you have printed materials, but this is a really good summary of what you need to communicate to them: who we are, what we do, where we've done it, how we're specialized, how we can help, and what makes us better than everybody else. And this is always fun. I've known this PowerPoint rule for about 20 years. One slide, no more than 5 minutes, and 6 slides for a 30-minute briefing. If they give you a 30-minute briefing. So just keep that in mind. So coming to the end, Washington PTAC is available to help you anytime. We offer one-to-one counseling, workshops, bid matchmaking, and all we ask from you in return is that you notify us if you received any contracts. And then on the right-hand side, I have a complete list of all the KITSAP PTACs that are available to give you a hand. But Washington PTAC has PTACs all up and down I-5 and across the state. So if you need any help, connect with us one way or the other, and we'll get you what you need. So we're coming to the end, and we have time for some questions if anybody has any questions. And then at 2:45, Graham Ralston is here, and Graham is going to do a little walkthrough on the spot technology for matchmaking. And I believe that we posted that link in the chat for you if you want to join us after we get done with the questions. And I see that Andrew has his hand up. What can I do for you, Andrew?
I ask lots of questions, sorry. You said that you should avoid logos for government use without permission. You can't use them at all. And I noticed that 2 of those examples, they had DLA, Navy, Air Force logos all up and down. Does that mean that A, they went out of their way to get permission before they printed this and started dispersing it? And B, just how hard is it to get permission to use those stamps? Because it's kind of neat to see, well, with the DLA, we did 20 contracts with this much, and just having the little logo seems to simplify it. Is it just a problem because of the hassle, or is it actually just to be avoided in general?
Yeah, it's not that big of a hassle if you get permission. If you don't get permission, then I would think that if you're audited, that might be one of the first things that they look at and call you on. But anyway, I would not use any government logos without permission. And, if I was doing the United States Air Force, I would talk to Michael Gilbert out at Fairchild Air Force Base and ask him if I can put this on our materials. And as PTAC, I don't know if we have global permission, but I wouldn't put them on any of my documents without asking first. Okay. So any other questions?
Leslie, you mentioned earlier, when we're doing a direct marketing to certain government individuals to also include case studies. I'm not sure how to prepare a case study.
Well, and I think that that's primarily on the innovation and more on the scientific side of things. If you're a caterer, that doesn't carry as much weight as if you're doing scientific research. But generally on the case studies, in the construction industry, how you compare to the industry, et cetera, et cetera. But, if you are in scientific or IT, we may want to talk about this, particularly on the IT sector now with the CMMC requirements for certification, and how your company has evolved in case studies compared to other companies. So hope that answered your question.